Okay, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I'm going to report about effective conflict resolution and negotiation. By the way, I'm Earl Allyn Angulo RN. To start with, let me define first what is conflict. Conflict is generally defined as the internal or external discord that results from differences in ideas, values, or feelings between two or more people. In every workplace, conflict does exist because we have different values, beliefs, backgrounds, and goals. Also, conflict is created when there are differences in economic and professional values. Of course, we are not all similarly situated. We have different economic status, and also some of us are not having the same professional values. That's why conflict exists. Now, let me give you a brief history of the conflict management. Well, conflict management in the early in the 20th century, conflict was considered to be an indication of poor organizational management. So if there is conflict, it means the management was poorly organized and it is deemed destructive and was avoided at all costs. In the mid-20th century, when organizations recognized that worker satisfaction and feedback were important, conflict was accepted passively and perceived as normal and expected. Attention centered on teaching managers how to resolve conflict rather than how to prevent it. With the history of conflict management, nursing managers can no longer afford to respond to conflict traditionally, just like how they responded during the 20th century, because those responses are non-productive. In an era of shrinking healthcare dollars, it has become increasingly important for managers to do confrontation and manage conflict appropriately. Well, we have categories of conflict, primary categories of conflict. The first one here is the intergroup conflict. It occurs between two or more groups of people, departments, and organizations. So the conflict is between two or more groups of people. The second one here is the interpersonal conflict. It happens between two or more people with differing values, goals, and beliefs. So it is between two or more people. It is sometimes because of role incompatibility inside the workplace. The third one here is the interpersonal conflict. It occurs within the person. It involves an internal struggle to clarify contradictory values or wants. So it happens within the person. There is conflict within that individual. So that is what we call intrapersonal conflict. Now, the conflict process has 5 stages. So these are the 5 stages of the conflict process. So let me just move this one a little bit. So we have the first one, the latent conflict. In latent conflict, it implies the existence of the antecedent conditions such as short staff and rapid change. Conditions here are ripe for conflict already, and managers here should examine the organization for antecedent condition to prevent unnecessary conflict in the future. So it means there is always an existing event or occurrence of a conflict, and it is just lying there. That is what we call latent conflict. The second one is the second stage. If the latent conflict is not solved, it is still there. The situation is still lying there and not being solved. Then there is already what we call a perceived conflict, because they know that there is an existing antecedent conditions. Then perceived conflict, it will progress to a perceived conflict. The person recognizes it logically and impersonally occurring. Sometimes this stage can be resolved already before it is internalized. So the third stage is the felt conflict. In this, conflict is already emotionalized. Fear, mistrust, and anger is already felt. That's why it's called felt conflict. And the next one is the manifest conflict. Action is already taken in this stage. Action could be to withdraw, compete, debate, or seek conflict resolution. So action is already been taking place in the manifest conflict. The fifth one is the conflict aftermath. conflict aftermath is, if managed well, people involved will believe that their position was given a fair hearing. If not managed well, then the conflict issues will remain and may return later. So that is the conflict aftermath, the last stage of conflict process. Sorry for that. Now, the conflict management. The optimal goal in the conflict management is resolving the conflict, creating a win-win solution for all involved. This outcome is not possible in every situation, and often the manager's goal is to manage the conflict in a way that lessens the perceptual differences that exist between the involved parties. There you go. So the common conflict resolution strategies that has been already known is, the first one here is compromising. Each party gives up something it wants. Although many see compromise as an optimum conflict resolution strategy, antagonistic cooperation may result in a lose-lose situation because either or both parties perceive that they have given up or more than the other and may therefore feel defeated. So for compromising not to result in a lose-lose situation, both parties must be willing to give up something of equal value. Common conflict resolution strategies. The second one here is competing approach. It is used when one party pursues what it wants at the expense of the other. Managers may use competing when a quick or unpopular decisions need to be made. It is also appropriately used when one party has more information or knowledge about a situation than the other. Competing in the form of resistance is also appropriate when an individual needs to resist unsafe patient care policies or procedures, unfair treatment, abuse of power, or ethical concerns. The third one here is cooperating or accommodating. Are appropriate political strategies if the item in conflict is not of high value to the person doing the accommodating. So cooperating is the opposite of competing. In the cooperating approach, one party sacrifices his or her beliefs and allows the other party to win. So that's how cooperating. It's the same with accommodating. It's the same. It's another term of this strategy. The person cooperating or accommodating often expects some type of payback or an accommodation from the winning party in the future. Common conflict resolution strategies number 4 is smoothing. It is used to manage a conflict situation. This occurs when one party in a conflict attempts to pacify the other party or to focus on agreements rather than differences. So the emotional component of the conflict is minimized. Managers often use smoothing to get someone to accommodate or cooperate with another party. Although it may be appropriate for minor disagreements, smoothing rarely results in resolution of the actual conflict. The fifth one is avoiding approach. The parties involved are aware of a conflict but choose not to acknowledge it or attempt to resolve it. So from the word itself, they are avoiding the situation. When the avoidance may be indicated in trivial disagreements. When the cost of dealing with the conflict exceeds the benefits of solving it, then avoidance is okay. When the problem should be solved by people other than you, then avoiding is okay. When one party is more powerful than the other, then that's why avoiding approach is used. When the problem will solve itself, the greatest problem in using avoidance is that the conflict remains, often only to re-emerge at a later time in an even more exaggerated fashion. So what happens is, if you keep avoiding the conflict, it grows and grows and until it re-emerges, and it will be more exaggerated. So the sixth one is collaborating. It is an assertive and cooperative means of conflict resolution that results in a win-win solution. All parties set aside their original goals and work together to establish a supraordinate or priority common goal. All parties accept mutual responsibility for reaching the supraordinate goal, and problem solving is a joint effort with no superior subordinate order-giving, order-taking relationship. So that is collaborating. There is a working relationship between two parties. They collaborate and cooperate with each other well. What are the common causes of organizational conflict? We have poor communication, inadequately defined organizational structure, Individual behavior, we have different behaviors. That's why there are disagreements because of differences of temperament or attitudes. Unclear expectations, individual or group conflicts of interest, operational or staffing changes, and diversity in gender, culture, or age. The strategies that a manager may use to facilitate conflict resolution. We have the first one here, confrontation. Managers can urge subordinates to attempt to handle their own problems by using face-to-face communication to resolve conflict. So that's how you do confrontation. Of course, you have to do face-to-face with the other party in order for the conflict to be solved. The second one here is third-party consultation. In here, the manager will have to seek help from someone or from an expert in order to facilitate communication and bring issues to the forefront. The third one is behavior change. In this, the manager must conduct educational modes or training development or sensitivity training, or maybe self-awareness for personality development for both parties in order to develop self-awareness and behavior change in the involved parties. The fourth one here is responsibility charting. If areas of joint responsibility exist, the manager must clearly define such areas as ultimate responsibility, approval mechanism, support services, and responsibility for informing. Okay, the fifth one is structure change. In here, the manager must decide to either transfer the other party to another unit or discharge the other party in order to solve the conflict. Often, increasing the boundaries of authority for one member of the conflict will act as an effective structure change to resolve unit conflict. So you could also give authority to one member so that there is boundary already between two parties. Soothing one party. This is a temporary solution that should be used in a crisis when there is no time to handle the conflict effectively. So if there is no time to handle the conflict, then soothing one party could be used. But then using this, the conflict, if there is no time to handle the conflict effectively, or when the parties are so enraged that immediate conflict resolution is unlikely, soothing one party is one strategy that a manager could use. So what are the factors that escalates workplace conflict? We have here workplace violence. Sample workplace violence is bullying. Of course, we already know what is bullying. Targeting one person by one or more perpetrators. Incivility is another term used to describe mistreatment or discourtesy to another person. Mobbing, surrounding someone and attacking them. Negotiation. Aside from those conflict strategies that we could use, we could also use the very common way of solving a conflict is negotiation. It is similar to collaboration, and in its most poorly managed form may resemble a competing approach. During negotiation, each party gives up something, and the emphasis is on accommodating differences between the parties. Few people are able to meet all of their needs or objectives. Most day-to-day conflict is resolved with negotiation. Yes, mostly, even outside work, we do some negotiation. If we encounter conflict between other people outside our workplace, negotiation is sometimes is very commonly used. No, so during negotiation, we also have to be prepared before, during, and after negotiation. But let me also give you an example of negotiation in the workplace as a nurse. Like, for example, if a nurse says to another nurse, "I'll answer that call light if you'll count narcotics," and if the other nurse will follow, then the negotiation that the other nurse is using is effective. Then before negotiation, we have to be prepared mentally, determine the incentives of the other person you will be negotiating with. You have to determine also your starting point, trade-offs, and bottom line, and look for hidden agendas, both your own and the parties with whom you are negotiating. Baka kasi may hidden agenda yung isa, so you have to know at least. During negotiation, maintain composure, ask for what you want assertively, role model good communication skills. Make sure you speak and you listen, assertiveness and flexibility. Be patient and take a break if either party becomes angry or tired during the negotiation. And avoid using destructive negotiation techniques, but be prepared to counter them if they are used against you. After negotiation, restate what has been agreed on. It is very important to restate it so that it is clear to both parties, or both verbally and in writing. Of course, we have to do it verbally, and of course, we have to do it in writing. Recognize and thank all participants for their contributions to a successful negotiation. We also have this destructive negotiation tactics. The first one here is ridicule. Ridicule is the goal in using ridicule is to intimidate others involved in the negotiation. If you are negotiating with someone who uses ridicule, maintain a relaxed body posture, steady gaze, and patient smile. Ambiguous or inappropriate questioning, like for example, when you already know that person knows what the answer, but still you keep on asking it just to intimidate him or her. So in that situation, you must be vigilant also of the question, and you have to answer it properly. Flattery, the person who is flattered may be reluctant to disagree with the other party. Then his or her own attention is divert already. So if you use flattery like acknowledging her appearance, acknowledging her presence, and appreciating her beauty, then her attention will be diverted already. Sadness also, when you see the other party is so sad, you individuals in the negotiation tend to concede on to a sad participant. So sadness is also a destructive negotiation technique. Tactics. Helplessness. Managers must be careful not to lose sight of the original goal or intent of the negotiation. So just because you see the other one has higher position than the other, and that other party looks so helpless, but then you as a manager should be very careful and should not lose the intent of the negotiation. Aggressively taking over. There are also some participants of the conflict. Someone may control the negotiation before it is happening already. So maybe doing bribery or whatsoever in order to take um, the negotiation before it is happening. Managers should halt the negotiation before a decision will be made if this kind of destructive negotiation is used. Alternative dispute resolution. We have also an alternative dispute resolution. We have here mediation, arbitration, and ombudsperson. Mediation, it uses neutral third party. It's a confidential, legally non-binding process designed to help bring the parties together to devise a solution to the conflict. Arbitration is a binding conflict resolution process in which the facts of the case are heard by an individual who makes a final decision for the parties in conflict. And last one is ombudsperson. Generally, this person holds an official title, and their function is to investigate grievances filed by one party against another and to ensure that individuals involved in the conflict understand their rights as well as the process that should be used to report and resolve the conflict. So those are the alternative dispute resolutions. Now, lastly, is we have to seek consensus. It means that negotiating parties reach an agreement that all parties can support, even if it does not represent everyone's first priority. Consensus decision-making does not provide complete satisfaction, of course, for everyone involved in a negotiation as an initially unanimous decision would, but it does indicate willingness by all parties to accept the agreed-on conditions. In seeking consensus, it requires all the parties involved in the negotiation to have good communication skills and to be open-minded and flexible. And lastly, in seeking consensus, it is also important for the leader to recognize when achieving consensus has become unrealistic. So that's all with our effective conflict resolution and negotiation. I hope you were able to get the right the points or the ideas on how are we going to solve conflict if we are going to be managers soon. So thank you so much and have a good day.